A clip recently appeared that caused a stir across the entire internet. In it, we see a glowing lifelike object gliding gently through the darkness of space. And here's the kicker. The video is supposed to show us none other than our interstellar visitor 3 Atlas. But how can that be? Officially, the object is classified as a comet, not a living organism. Is the recording really genuine? And does it finally provide proof that we are not alone in the universe? Well, of course, astronomers were skeptical from the outset because we see no starry background here, no tail, and no typical telescope noise. Research ultimately showed that the wondrous structure is completely different from what anyone would have expected, and that it does not originate from the depths of space but from a drop of water. Today we'll show you how a tiny living organism became an astronomical star, and what we really know about 3 Atlas. Anyone who is even remotely interested in space knows that current reporting is dominated by one particular topic. After all, there is currently an interstellar object traveling through our home world. Discovered on July 1st and christened 3I Atlas, this is only the third known interstellar visitor ever after Muamua and 2I Borisov. But what exactly are we dealing with here? Well, as briefly mentioned at the beginning, there is actually no longer any doubt about this. The majority of researchers are now certain that 3 Atlas is a purely natural comet. And yet, since the chunk has a number of puzzling characteristics that turn our previous knowledge of comets upside down, the wild speculations simply won't stop. In plain language, this means that some people are convinced that 3 Atlas is ultimately much more than that. Namely, an extraterrestrial spacecraft that was deliberately sent into the solar system to take a close look at our planetary neighborhood. This idea is fueled, among other things, by the publications of A.V.I. Loeb, a Harvard professor who repeatedly rubs salt in the cosmic wound and draws attention to the astronomical inconsistencies of our visitor. According to his own statements, however, Loeb himself does not assume that 3 Atlas is a work of an intelligent species. Instead, he simply wants to sharpen his colleagues' eye for the unexpected and urge science not to close itself off to controversial possibilities. And then a video actually appeared that turned that very controversial possibility into supposed reality, posted on X on October 27th. It's a short clip with the unassuming title, "New 3 Atlas footage just dropped." And what could be seen in it probably made every viewer's jaw drop. Instead of a mundane space rock, the video shows a glowing floating object gliding through the deep black void in gentle wave-like movements. And then the inevitable happened. The post was shared thousands of times. News portals jumped on it, and the clip spread like wildfire across the internet. In and of itself, this is not really surprising because if this really is a genuine close-up of 3 Atlas, everything would indicate that a living organism has invaded the solar system. But it's also not really surprising that experts quickly became suspicious because something just didn't seem right about the image. We don't see a tail, a glowing coma, or light scattering as you always see with real telescopes. Instead, we see an almost too perfect flowing motion that is more reminiscent of an underwater shot than a snapshot in the vacuum of space. In addition, the object did not appear in the scientific databases of NASA, ESA, or independent observatories. The crucial question was what this mysterious object really represented. To find out, the fact-checkers turned to experts from a completely different field and came up with an answer that no one had expected. Not a comet, but a cell. If you want to get to the bottom of an internet rumor, you sometimes have to resort to digital soothing. And so, it came to pass that the fact-checkers analyzed metadata and performed reverse image searches. And in doing so, they uncovered a surprising discovery. The video is indeed real, but it shows something completely different from what the online community was led to believe. In reality, what we see here is not an alien that has been traveling through interstellar space for billions of years, but a microscopic organism moving around in a drop of water. Jack Gilbert, a professor of microbiological ecology at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography, explains, "This is a paramium. I believe in fresh water, although better phase contrast and information about where it was found would be ideal for identifying it more accurately. So, it can be assumed that the supposed alien is actually a paramium. These tiny single-cell creatures move with the help of thousands of tiny hairs called cilia which generate wave-like movements. With the right lighting and in time-lapse, these movements almost look like a glowing object dancing through space. And that's exactly the point. History shows us how easy it is to create an image that has nothing to do with reality. If you crop the image, darken it, and take it out of context, it creates the impression of something huge and alien. And so, an earthly single-celled organism becomes an interstellar intruder in the blink of an eye. To the untrained eye, the clip looked quite authentic. The flowing organic pattern and apparent depth actually looked like a shot from space. But when experts took a closer look and checked the data, light reflections, and the laws of physics, it became clear that the origin of this creature lay not in the vastness of the universe, but in the microcosm. Perhaps this was also a case of wishful thinking. After all, how spectacular would it be if 3 Atlas really were an extraterrestrial life form? What is certain, however, is that this case reminds us once again that we would be well advised to treat the clips that are currently haunting the internet with a healthy dose of skepticism. At the same time, however, and this is exciting, we should not forget that even real interstellar visitors bring with them a host of exciting mysteries. What we really know about 3 Atlas. Even though 3E Atlas is not an oversized paramium, it is anything but ordinary. In fact, this mysterious chunk of rock seems to turn everything we thought we knew about comets upside down, starting with its so-called antitail. Normally, comet tails always point away from the sun, which is only logical since solar radiation and solar wind blow dust and gas away from the comet's nucleus. But 3 Atlas seemed to do the exact opposite, and its tail initially appeared to point toward the sun. Of course, the internet was quick to jump on this, speculating about artificial alien propulsion systems, but the scientific truth is somewhat more prosaic. The CO sublimation of the nucleus released ice particles that initially scattered the sunlight. As the comet got closer to the sun, these ice particles evaporated and were replaced by dust with the result that the tail visually reversed until it finally returned to its typical direction away from the sun. The antitail was therefore the result of an exciting optical effect that had nothing to do with extraterrestrial creatures. In addition, the chemical composition of our visitor is also fascinating. Spectral analyses revealed an unusually high ratio of CO2 to H2O. And that's important because the comet's composition can tell us something about its original homeworld. There is much to suggest that 3 Atlas originated in a distant star system that is much colder than the solar system. At the same time, researchers estimate that it's over 7 billion years old, making it a kind of cosmic witness that tells us of an era whose roots go back much further than those of our home system. The comet's activity has also surprised scientists. In fact, 3 Atlas has already shown gas and dust emissions far away from the sun, which, to put it mildly, is rather unusual. Researchers use a KEK observatory in Hawaii to analyze these emissions and were surprised to find that the object was emitting gas both toward the sun and in the opposite direction. And although this behavior is atypical, it consisted with the rules of comet physics as we know them. And although 3 Atlas recently passed through its perihelion, the point in its orbit closest to the sun and has now returned to our earthly field of vision, it will be targeted by a cosmic observer in the future, namely the deepspace probe. The probe is actually on its way to Jupiter to explore the mighty gas giant and its moons. But an unexpected coincidence means that the probe and the interstellar comet will cross paths on their journey. JUICE is in the right place at the right time to observe 3I Atlas from a distance of 60 million kilometers. It will therefore point its instruments at the object until November 25th and for the first time take direct measurements of the comet activity, composition, and dynamics during its most active phase. And although the relevant data will not reach us until February, it could help to solve some of the great mysteries surrounding 3I Atlas. We still don't know exactly where our visitor comes from or what processes it has undergone on its long journey through interstellar space in our home galaxy. What we do know, however, is that we are not just seeing any comet rushing through the solar system, but a living cosmic window that brings a piece of galactic history right to our doorstep on Earth. And we'd be delighted if you would allow us to feature our videos on your YouTube homepage from now on. Simply click on the thumbs up and subscribe to never miss a new post from us again. See you soon.